Morning, friends. Welcome back to day 2 of our Montana Housing Partnership Conference. We hope that you had an incredible day of learning yesterday and a fun last night, and we are excited for day 2 of the conference. I am Katie Biggs, Director of Operations at NeighborWorks Montana, and I get to kick off our morning. So welcome back. If you are joining us for the first time this morning, and as a reminder to everyone, we encourage you to use the Whova site to engage with other attendees, presenters, and sponsors. There's some great content going up on Whova right now. If you have a technical issue, please look at the FAQ, troubleshooting tips in Whova. If you need additional help with whatever technical issue you have, you can email, text, or call Todd Jackson. His contact info is in the chat below. It is so great to be back with you this morning. We hope that you had a great time at the networking events last night. I got to attend the one that NeighborWorks Great Falls put on in Great Falls, where I live, and we had a ton of great pizza and some wings and some beer, and it was a great time to chat with everybody in Great Falls. This morning is fun. We get to honor so many incredible people doing the work that is happening across the state. We are going to bring on a few folks here. And while our back end works on that, each year we look forward to recognizing and celebrating some of the great work people are doing. We do this through our awards ceremony. The awards this year are sponsored by US Bank. Thank you to your sponsorship and support. This year we have 3 Lifetime Achievement Awards. These are for people who have made significant contributions to the field of affordable housing in Montana and have made a lasting positive impact on the people and communities of our state. To present the first award, I'm going to pause really quick and make sure that they can actually present them. I want to welcome Wilmot Collins, the mayor of Helena. Wilmot, the stage is yours for this moment. And Wilmot, you should be able to unmute and speak when you're ready. Wilmot, do you need any assistance or are you good? Oh, we can't hear you. Here, let's see if we can get you unmuted. Maybe? Nothing like starting the morning with some technical difficulties. We love it.
I know you.
There you are.
Yeah,
there you go.
I'm trying to switch to another screen, and because this screen does not work.
Okay.
Oh. Now I'm confused.
Oh no. Let us know if you need us to jump in and do it.
Oh, well, okay, I'll use this screen.
Perfect.
Good morning, and I'm happy to be able to say a few words to one of my favorite former employees. She's a gem. Sharon has been in public service for about 41 years, serving in state, county, and city government. She started working for the city of Helena in 2004, where she supported 9 different city managers. Now, not many people can say that. 9 different city managers and 18 different commissioners. As the community development director, she allocated more than $5 million in housing and community development. development grants, and she leveraged 80 million in funding that resulted into over 600 units of housing made available for the most vulnerable in the Helena area. We estimate she attended at least 1,800 evening meetings. And that's aside from what she did regularly as her job from morning to maybe sometimes 10 o'clock at night. There are countless volunteers Sharon worked with and community partners she built that resulted in community-wide impact for the most in need. Some of those partners are like Rocky Mountain Development Council, Westmont, Intermountain Children's Home, Helena YWCA, Habitat for Humanity, Helena Housing Authority, Montana Business Assistant Connection, the Business Improvement District, Florence Crittenton, and the Center for Mental Health. Not many people can say that also. A quote that Sharon liked and shared from one of her favorite public servants: always remember, do your homework, treat people with respect, and make your decision with an honest purpose. And that should be a guide for all of us, because that's what we should live by. We should be able to make our decisions with an honest purpose. The city of Helena celebrated Sharon Hoggins Day on January 26, 2022. And I'm honored to present her with the Montana Housing Partnership Lifetime Achievement Award today. Sharon, congratulations. And it's been a pleasure to know you and meet you and work alongside you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Wilmot, and thank you, Sharon. It's inspiring to hear all that you have done. For our next Lifetime Achievement Award, we are going to be joined by Cheryl Cohen, the Director of Montana Housing, to present her award.
Hey everyone, and sorry I'm joining you in my puffy jacket. It's the middle of June and my office is freezing, but super happy to be here today and happy to surprise one of our staff, Diana Culver-Vanek, with a Lifetime Achievement Award. Diana has worked for the Housing Division with the Department of Commerce for over 13 years. And she's just gone above and beyond countless hours working to support Montanans with safe and affordable housing through multiple federal rental assistance programs. She's been our project-based Section 8 supervisor. And earlier last year, she moved into the position of our emergency rental assistance program manager. And for a long time, she did both of those jobs and is continuing to do an amazing work with our team, and couldn't be more thankful for all the work that Diana has done with no complaints, with a smile on her face throughout the last couple of years. And I'll just share a little fun tidbit. We had a little bit of a crunch on a emergency rental assistance reporting that went down to the wire. We may have been here fairly late that evening, and her and Leslie Torgerson were crunching some numbers, and I may have gone and gotten some to-go gin and tonics to bring back for such an occasion. But these are the sorts of things that Diana does with no questions asked, and it's just an amazing thing to have someone on your team that is willing to go that extra mile and even offer to do so without even being asked. So thank you so much, Diana, and we're so grateful we get to have you for almost the rest of this year before you fly off into retirement in your beautiful new home in New Mexico. Congratulations, Diana.
Thank you. Congratulations, Diana. And Sharon or Diana, do either of you want to say anything? I forgot to ask Sharon prior to this, but we always love to hear from our Lifetime Achievement Award winners.
Yeah, if I could, I just want to thank you for the honor. I know many of the former honorees, and this is such an honor for me, but I can say that since I started working at the home program in 1992, when I came to Montana, to when I retired, and even now, we have such great people to work on housing issues, and we're fortunate. We've got quite the task, but I'm sure we can all do it together. And the other thing I wanted to note this morning is that we should all say a little prayer and find out what we can do for all the folks down in Yellowstone and Red Lodge and down in that part of the country in Montana. They're going to need our help. So thank you very much.
And I can echo that this is quite an honor. And that I have really enjoyed all of my 13 plus years and meeting all of you wonderful people and networking. And it's been so much fun. I can't even, most days I can't even call it work. It's so rewarding. And I have a terrific team and I work for the best people. I just thank you very much for this honor. I appreciate it. And I will miss you all.
Well, thank you, Diana and Sharon, for your commitment. For our final Lifetime Achievement Award this year, we're going to bring on Jim Morton, Executive Director of the Missoula Human Resource Council, to present the final award.
Good morning. This morning, I have the privilege of presenting the Lifetime Achievement Award to Bob Buzzes, Robert Buzzes. I have known Bob for so many decades that I had to ask him about his history because I just took it for granted. And I think one thing that came across to me, in addition to all of his work, which I'll get to, was that he was an intern at the 1972 Constitutional Convention. And I want to read the preamble to our Constitution. We, the people of Montana, grateful to God for the quiet beauty of our state, the grandeur of our mountains, the vastness of our rolling plains, and desiring to improve the quality of life, equality of opportunity, and to secure the blessings of liberty for this and future generations, do ordain and establish this Constitution. I read that because what a great kickoff to a career. I mean, seriously, to be part of that. And I know Bob is very proud of that. Bob then went on to work in the US Senate. And in 1990, he did a bold thing. He started a consulting firm in Bozeman. And shortly thereafter, after working for several firms and organizations, he started working with the Montana Continuum of Care. And something that many of us have forgotten is that we had the first statewide continuum of care in the nation. And Bob has worked on every consolidated application since then, from 1997 to 2022. My math tells me that's about, what, 22 years? And again, the first statewide continuum of care in the nation. That's something that again, he should be very proud of. Those of us who have known Bob know what just a steady person he's been in terms of walking through all kinds of minefields when you're dealing with so many organizations. And to just sum it up, we have in this state the Youth Homelessness Demonstration Project that is working with youth 18 to 24 who are houseless or experiencing homelessness, and Bob's footprint and fingerprints and every part of him was in that application that we won as the state. So I am just very honored to present him, and those of us who have worked with him for decades just take for granted having him around and being able to call on him for that reasoned approach to everything. And so I think some of us will be finding him wherever he is and still asking him questions. So thank you so much, Bob, for your decades of service.
Thank you, Jim, and congratulations, Bob. Bob, do you want to say anything?
Well, yeah, after that, I've got to say something. I mean, it's an honor that in and of itself that I'm getting this from Jim, who, to borrow a phrase, is a legend in his own time. But I guess, you know, when you retire, you can't help thinking about all the people who came before you in this work, and even all those who are going to continue to come after us. And all I can say is I'm just really grateful to have been a part of that. I've had the good fortune to get to know and work with so many amazing people. And I will just leave it at that, but thank you everyone and have a great conference.
Thank you, Bob. And thank you, Jim, for presenting that. And thank you to Sharon and Diana as well. I know as someone who's fairly early in their career that we get to stand on the shoulders of giants in this work in the state. And it is impressive. And I always get a little tearful during the award ceremony that we get to follow in your guys' footsteps. So Thank you for your incredible dedication, your leadership, and may your retirements be well spent. New this year, we would like to recognize other members of our field who are retiring from their service as staff, board members, or volunteers. And I think we have a quick little slideshow for that. Thanks, Michelle, for running that. And just so you guys know, this is something we're going to start doing year over year, is honoring our retirees. So please be thinking about who you would like to honor next year. One of our great sponsors this year was NeighborWorks America. And we are excited this morning to get to hear a few words from Lisa Hasagawa from NeighborWorks America. Lisa is one of our, or NeighborWorks America is one of our gold sponsors for the conference. Lisa, welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody, and congratulations to the awardees. So I'm happy to be here with you all this morning virtually. I had the pleasure of being there in person a few years ago during the pandemic, during my first year on the job. So I'm the Western Region Vice President for NeighborWorks America, and I'm based here in Los Angeles, California, and wish I could be there with you all in person someday soon. NeighborWorks America, for those of you who may not know, we are a congressionally chartered nonprofit organization. We work around the country, and in Montana, we work with NeighborWorks Montana and Great Falls. And so we're really proud of all of the work that they've been doing, and really happy to be here to support this conference. We also have two other organizations I just wanted to mention that are also working in Montana, but are headquartered elsewhere. Chicanos por la Causa in Arizona, as well as NeighborWorks Housing Solutions in Massachusetts. We provide core operating support to this network of organizations that are doing work on the ground. And this past year, we provided close to $1 million to our two Montana NeighborWorks organizations. And also this year, we had a special appropriation from Congress for the Housing Counseling Stability Program. And we were pleased to be able to award over $2 million to the state of Montana, to NeighborWorks Montana, for that program as well. That program is really to help nonprofit organizations and organizations that provide direct counseling services to individuals and families that are facing housing instability. And that's just been such a challenge, I think, for the country. And we were really happy to be able to provide that additional support for organizations that NeighborWorks Montana works with that are doing the housing counseling work every day. So our mission really is to create opportunity for people to live in affordable homes, to improve their lives, and to strengthen their communities. And so the implementation of the Housing Counseling Stability Program is really just one of the ways in which we've worked with organizations around the country. So we're really happy to sponsor this event. It's a wonderful opportunity for everybody to kind of share what's been going on, to come up with really creative solutions to help everybody who is facing housing challenges right now. So happy to be here, happy to support this event, and thank you so much.
Thank you, Lisa, and thank you to NeighborWorks America for all the support that you have put into Montana. We appreciate it so much.
Have a wonderful convening.
Thank you. Thank you. We now turn to the People's Choice Award. Last year's winner was Homeward. They used the funds to help produce a video that they used for their annual Sustainable Communities Benefit, which was held virtually this year. Before we open voting for this year's award, we'd like to share a segment of Homeward's video with you. So take a quick look at this video that Homeward created.
We play games and cards in the community room.
This event possible. Welcome, and thank you for joining us. I'm Andrea Davis, Homeward's Executive Director. Homeward's vision statement is simple, that every Montanan has a safe and decent place to live. I am proud to wake up every day with this vision in my sights. Each year, I share about the rising costs of renting or buying a home, how it's more expensive than the year before, and how Montana wages aren't keeping pace with the accelerating real estate market. Never have I stood before you to say that the cost of buying or renting a home has increased by double digits in 1 year, until now. For instance, in places like Great Falls and Missoula, home sale prices have increased by 21%, and in Kalispell by 32%. For the health and strength of our communities, Montanans must be able to afford their homes and make wise financial decisions. With support from people like you, we are changing the lives of tens of thousands of Montana's workers, veterans, seniors, and families. Our Homeownership Center offers financial and home buying programs that have helped over 18,000 Montanans buy their first home and meet their financial goals, 1,400 just last year that included the parents of 1,100 children. Since 1994, we've created over 1,300 homes Montanans can afford. These homes, just like the communities they're in, have unique features that create a sense of place and connection. Alpenglow, finished last year, includes 38 apartments near downtown Whitefish. The homes are beautiful, with lots of light that spurs joy for the residents. In a community that now has a median home sales price of over $1 million, we are proud to have built these homes local workers and seniors can afford to live in with dignity. Today, we are building Trinity Apartments in Missoula, and we'll begin leasing these 202 homes to local workers and families in early 2023. Trinity includes apartments for people experiencing chronic homelessness. This approach is referred to as permanent supportive housing. Trinity embodies what happens when we come together and envision solutions for every Montanan to have a safe and decent home. We're also creating 24 permanent supportive homes in Great Falls, 16 rentals in Lewistown, and 136 new apartments in Kalispell. We continue to experience this collision of home shortage, growing population, skyrocketing rents, and home sale prices. The issues influencing this crisis are multifaceted, including shortage of labor, volatile building material pricing, and inadequately zoned land. These are coupled with stagnant growth in income and have left many Montanans unable to afford to buy or rent a home. First-time homebuyers are now competing with the wave of remote workers and retirees with higher wages and savings moving into the area. The long period of historically low interest rates helped first-time homebuyers too, until prices ballooned beyond their reach. They're also impacted by global investor pressure. Existing supply is tied up with baby boomers staying in their homes longer, while millennials are seeking to set down roots in homes of their own. This intensely pressurized market makes a lot of renters vulnerable to either paying incredibly high rents and not able to save for a down payment, or, sadly, losing their homes altogether. For 27 years, Homeward has been bridging the gap by teaching important financial skills and creating homes for local workers and families. Right now, we're empowering over 100 Montanans a month through our virtual homebuyer and financial skill building programs. We're creating another 455 homes Montanans like Sally can afford. Sally reminds me of my mom. Her daughters have the security of their mother living in a place that she has lovingly made her home.
My name is Sally, and I'm a resident at the new Alpenglow Apartments in Whitefish. I have 2 daughters who live in the area. I'm older, and they wanted me to be closer, so I moved to Whitefish. I was looking at another place in town and saw the sign-up sheet for Alpenglow. I couldn't have afforded any other rent in Whitefish. I like the ADA apartment I'm in. The bathroom and bedroom doors are 3 feet wide, so I can get into them easily in my wheelchair. I enjoyed making curtains for my bathroom. I get light from both sides because of the design of my apartment. There are deep windowsills for my plants. There's also a private balcony where I have outside plants in the summer. I've met nice people here at Alpenglow. We play games and cards in the community room. I'm half a mile from the center of town, and I'm close to my daughters and their families. One is 1.5 miles away, and the other lives in the next town. I'm counting my blessings and am very happy here.
Great work, Homeward. We are so glad you were able to put your People's Choice Award to such good use. Homeward was able to raise $31,000 through their benefit event this year. Homeward is not eligible to win again this year, but we are really looking forward to seeing who wins the award this year. We are now opening the voting for this year's People's Choice Award and are posting a SurveyMonkey link in the chat as we speak. You will have until the end of the conference today at 3:30 p.m. to vote by completing the survey. There are currently 37 organizations nominated by each of you. You all submitted wonderful nominations, and it was inspiring to see all the comments and supports you had for the work of your peers. You can see all the nominees on the Whova app under Documents and also on the agenda page for this session. We hope you do take some time to look at the nominees and consider who you would like to vote for. You will get to select 3. We will announce the winner via email Thursday afternoon. The winner will receive $3,000 toward production of a video about their organization or a program. Again, please vote via SurveyMonkey by the end of the conference today at 3:30 p.m. Lastly, before we turn to our plenary this morning, we wanted to announce this year's Community Give Back sponsorship. Each year, we take a portion of sponsorship and registration fees and give back to support the housing efforts of an organization in the community where we host a conference or virtually someone who attends. We have continued this tradition with our virtual events, and this year we are contributing the Community Give Back donation to the Montana Native Homeownership Coalition. Thank you to GMD for again being our Community Give Back sponsor this year. The Montana Native Homeownership Coalition is a collaboration of diverse stakeholders, including representatives of tribes, tribal housing authorities, Native community development financial institutions, lending institutions, and other stakeholders working to address barriers and improve pathways to homeownership for Native Americans across Montana. The coalition is working to replace policy barriers with clear pathways to homeownership, mobilize lender and investor engagement on tribal trust land, inspire and cultivate Native homeownership, and engage tribal leaders. We hope you will join the circle and be part of the coalition. We are posting a link in the chat with more information. And that concludes my portion of this morning, and I want to pass it off to my colleague, Kaya Peterson, for our main plenary session.
Good morning, everyone. Just trying to get this Native Coalition link in there for you so you can all see where that is. Congratulations to them for that Give Back sponsor, and great video from Homeward. Excited to see who that People's Choice Award winner is this year. So our plenary this morning is sponsored by Montana Housing. Thank you to the whole Montana Housing team who work with us every day to provide safe, stable, affordable homes for Montanans. We are so grateful to have you as partners in this conference. For this plenary, we are pleased to be joined by filmmaker Sara Terry. Terry, if you want to, there you are. Hello. Thanks for joining us this morning. Sara is a, yeah, absolutely. Sara is a director whose work explores how we define our humanity and the role of community in helping us understand what our humanity looks like. Her first documentary, Fam Build Talk, was about an unprecedented grassroots forgiveness program in Sierra Leone. The film was widely acclaimed, including on Paste Magazine's list of 100 best documentaries of all time. Sara's second documentary, Folk, followed 3 singer-songwriters through the subculture of American folk music. Sara is a member of the International Cinematographers Guild, has consulted on more than a dozen documentaries, and holds a number of fellowships, all of which you can see in her bio on the conference website. Her third documentary, A Decent Home, which she directed, filmed, and produced, premiered in November of 2021. A Decent Home is a feature-length documentary that addresses urgent issues of class and economic inequity through the lives of mobile home park residents who can't afford housing anywhere else. So as part of this work, Sara created a 10-minute documentary, The Carlyle Group versus the American Dream. We are going to share this short film with you now, and then we will have a question and answer with Sara following the screen. So we'll move to the film and then we'll be back here with you after. Thanks.
I've always been a renter. I come from a family that was poor. I was the first of the family to get a college degree. When I bought here in Plaza del Rey 32 years ago, I was the first in my family that was able to get a home of my own. It's my little haven. I can feel comfortable in the world.
I bought the house late 2014 and moved in the first part of 2015 when I retired from nursing and ended up here because I couldn't afford anything else. I would like to see myself staying here for the rest of my life.
We moved here in 1973, and the reason we came was because we had a big 5-bedroom house in Saratoga, and I wanted to learn how to play golf. I thought, that's it. Instead of 5 bedrooms, we have 2 bedrooms. We just made the most of what we had. We weren't rich, but we had a good time.
I moved here in 1989. At that point in time, housing prices really started to rise, and I wanted to own my house so I could paint my walls yellow if I wanted to. And I thought, hey, I could live with this.
It's a close-knit community. I got to know my neighbors.
My fingers don't work like they used to. Yeah, that's good.
The social activities are pretty varied. Bridge, pinochle. I personally belong to both of the bunco groups.
Oh, no. Sorry. I'm in the social club, and I'm in the exercise group when I get there.
There's a group called Stitch and Bitch. Some of the older ladies get together once a week and do more bitching than stitching.
I like people that live in mobile home parks. We're a little different breed in some ways.
A manufactured home is built in a factory and then moved to the site and set up.
You own the house, the actual mobile home, but unfortunately, I'm on somebody else's land, even though I own my home and paid for my home and paid for everything that was involved in my home.
We have to provide everything here, all the amenities and the landscaping, upkeep.
People pay personal property tax on these buildings.
We can't just pick up and leave if we don't like it, like you can if you live in an apartment.
The park owner maintains the park. Our space rent goes toward maintaining the park and a profit to them. The park was known as the park with a heart.
The owner, he just went out of his way to make things comfortable and to make things available to us. Of course, then he passed on. And then through the family, it was passed down until they didn't want it anymore.
So then we were bought out by this Carlyle Group, and our lives were totally disrupted.
Since then, the park with the heart is gone.
According to one new report, over 100,000 home sites, traditionally run by mom-and-pop businesses, are now owned or partly owned by private equity firms like these. So the homes of some of the poorest people in America are getting snapped up by some of the richest people in America. And luckily, there have been no problems whatsoever.
They started off with an immediate 8% increase, which was $75 to $100 a month, space rent.
There's no constraints on them whatsoever on the rents. They can raise them to whatever they want.
Money, money, money. We want more money out of this.
Now I'm in this situation. I may be forced to move or leave everything, my doctors, my friends, the life I've known here. Why should at this age, should I be put in that situation when I'm just looking for the security I never had before?
Most of us are on a limited income, a very limited income.
If the rents continue to rise the way they have, I eventually won't be able to pay my rent.
Because of Carlyle treating this like commercial property and forgetting that these are people's homes, there's a pall that has fallen over this mobile home park that wasn't here before, and you can just kind of feel it. We went to the city council trying to get a rent stabilization ordinance.
Manufactured housing or mobile homes are really not mobile. They're immobile.
They represent affordable housing in an otherwise prohibitive housing market and appeal to the council to put a high priority on a mobile home rent control study session.
We are opposed to rent control in any form and believe it does not further the objectives of the city, the residents, or the owners in the long term. Negotiation between the parties is where these issues should be worked out, and we hope the city council will recognize the efforts made by all parties involved at Plaza del Rey. Thank you.
When a senior member of Carlyle's leadership group state publicly that they oppose any kind of rent stabilization or rent control, that is just flat out bullying by a multinational corporation.
I have not seen rent control work that well.
The city council admit that they're afraid of the Carlyle Group because they're such a huge conglomerate company.
Their sole purpose here is to make money for their investors who are in the top 1%. In fact, the top 0.1%.
They managed to come up with some agreement that we would be able to have a lease for 5 years.
With 4% increase a year for 5 years. And the way the lease reads, they can do capital improvements and tack it onto our rent. I chose not to sign it.
I decided after a point in time that in order to get rent control for Sunnyvale, we would need the help of other mobile home parks to equalize this. In Sunnyvale, there are 3,700 mobile home park spaces.
We've met with our state assembly and senate, and we're now working closely with groups to strengthen mobile home protection laws from the state level. You've got big corporations like Carlyle who have the backing of high-powered attorneys versus us.
Hometown America purchased from Carlyle last year, and they are every bit as egregious as Carlyle, perhaps even more. Carlyle bought the park in 2015 for $180 million. We offered Carlyle $224 million, but Hometown America came in and offered $230 million, and they took that offer. $6 million difference.
In the last 4 years, prices kept going up, and they're charging me 7.5% a year increase because I refused to sign a lease. In the 7 years I've been here, my rent has gone up 54%. I can't sustain that.
Here we are now with a company that bought us not for a community, but for profit only. We're sitting ducks. Politicians don't have the will to stop it.
They wanted to increase our rent to an incoming buyer by 35%. Parks that are around this area have much lower rents than we do, so that people won't buy here. They'll say, oh, I'll go across the street and buy a house. I can't just go somewhere else. I own my home. I have to sell it, and it won't sell.
The ultra-wealthy are buying up these mobile home parks with the intention of milking as much money out of poor people as they possibly can. This is unconscionable that we let this go on.
This is no longer affordable housing. It costs more than a 3-bedroom apartment to live here now.
People come here in mobile home parks not for investment. They come here for a home to live in. Mobile home parks are the only unsubsidized affordable housing around. So all of a sudden now they're major investments for predatory vultures.
The customers are stuck there. They don't have any option. They can't afford to move the trailer. They don't have $3 grand. So the only way they can object to your rent raise is to walk off and leave the trailer, in which case it becomes abandoned property and you recycle it, put another person in it. So you really hold all the cards.
We're the 6th largest owner of mobile home parks. We own over 160 mobile home parks spread out over about 22 states. If we don't keep the rents up to par, then the parks will go away because there's other things you can do with the land.
I mean, you could choose to stay with a mobile home park and just make less money.
That is entirely true, but that's the economics of landlording. We're not a nonprofit.
And what happens to all the people in these mobile home parks? We'll become economic refugees because we will be priced out of our own homes. The American dream I've never expected to have it.
A home, food on your table, a safe city to live in, a job.
To survive. My American dream is to survive.
Sara, thank you for that. Lots of hearts and claps.
Mhm.
So we want to have a discussion today with Sara and invite everyone in attendance to post your questions in the Q&A. You can also use the chat. We'll be monitoring both. To get the conversation started this morning, I wanted to just start, Sara, with a little bit of background on what made you interested in this issue and why you decided to make this film and A Decent Home.
Thanks again for wanting to share it with folks in Montana. You know, we were A Decent Home, which is the feature-length film I made, was the opening night film at the Big Sky Film Festival. And that's where we first connected with you all and fell in love with the work you're doing. I have long felt that the wealth gap was like, it's the major issue we face, you know, for our times, I think, in my times. I think it's the face of climate change, you know, that greed is the face of climate change. It's the face of systemic racism. It's the face of economic inequity. And it has permeated our lives in so many ways that we don't always see what's going on. So when I read an article in The Guardian in 2015 about Mobile Home University, you know, I kind of sat up straight. I mean, my ex-husband grew up in a mobile home. I think we all have some familiarity somewhere with somebody who knows that experience. I say mobile homes, by the way, because I tend to speak to the outward facing public. You know, I know many people use manufactured housing, which I understand as well. But the article talked about Warren Buffett being in this, arena with his ownership of Clayton Homes and the two largest lenders. Billionaire Sam Zell owns more mobile home parks than anybody else. But it was this little fact that kind of was buried in the article about the Carlyle Group just having begun to buy mobile home parks, which, you know, the Carlyle Group is the face of private equity, you know, as well. It's one of the biggest in the world. And that's where I just kind of slammed my feet on the floor, I think almost literally. And because I thought, no, wait a minute, who are we becoming as Americans when the wealthiest of the wealthy are buying up housing that is the lowest rung, which I say with great respect, of the American dream. And 6 weeks later, I had borrowed a film camera. I scraped together, I think I used frequent flyer miles, and I was in Chicago filming at Mobile Home University. And they no longer actually let people come in to film, or reporters of any kind, in at Mobile Home University. They've gotten some knocks, you know, in recent years, including footage from my film and now this film. So yeah, it was that. It was like, this is an unsustainable world with this kind of gross inequity. I remember beginning a conversation in Missoula in February, where I just said, why are we all being priced out of affordable housing? I mean, I live in LA. I nearly lost my home in the toxic mortgage meltdown. It's a different situation than somebody who lives in a mobile home, but I knew that fear. And it's like, and I could never buy in LA again now. You know, it's like, and people from here have moved to Montana. People from Montana can no longer buy in Montana, you know, longtime residents, and have to move elsewhere. And a few days after, you know, I had this conversation, the New York Times ran an article that said the next affordable city is already too expensive. So it's this, I mean, home is the heart of everything we are. It's the heart of every social issue, every healthy community issue. If we have stable homes, if we have decent homes, then every other issue can start to be addressed from there. And right now, the battle for home is with the wealthiest people in the world.
I think we are seeing a lot of the questions and the themes that you raise in this film and in the feature length around, is the American dream changing? What do people have access to that, you know, one of the residents in the film saying, my American dream is just to survive. I find that such a powerful and heart-wrenching.
Isn't that just
quote.
incredible? I have a sad update on Dot. She passed away not long ago, but she's one of my favorite. I mean, I love all my subjects, you know, Dot in particular was sort of a pistol, you know, but yeah, people are fighting, you know, people, the film, I'll put the website for the film in the chat, you know, chronicles the fight to save a mobile home park in Denver Meadows in Aurora, the Denver Meadows mobile home park in Aurora, Colorado. Residents of that park went through severe health issues, you know, during the 3-year battle to save it, the stress of it. It's why housing is a public health issue. You know, it's why housing we've built networks of activists that from public health to organized labor to affordable housing activists, you know, it's like we can all come together in this space.
Yeah. So one attendee asked, did those wonderful folks have to move in the end? Or is this still ongoing?
In that park, most of as far as I know, everybody that's in the film, I stay in pretty good touch with the people that I've worked with, is still there. Bonnie's situation was particularly dire. She's the woman who hosted the Bunko Babes. Because she chose not to sign the lease that guaranteed, you know, a specific rise in rent because she didn't like the terms of it. And I think her lot rent has gone up 70% in the past 5 years. So as she explained, she can't sell her home right now because the new owners, what they've done is they charge lot rent increases to incoming people. You know, so they're moderating it a bit on present people, but when you charge a higher rate to incoming people, that lowers the value of your home by tens of thousands. So Bonnie's stuck in that space right now.
Yeah, it's a common challenge. And for folks who are in attendance, you probably know that NeighborWorks Montana does a lot of work with residents of manufactured home communities through our resident-owned community program. And we track pretty closely what's happening in Montana and certainly are seeing similar trends. When Sara was here in February, I said, every person in your film, I know someone in Montana who I would say, that's the Dot of Montana, or that's the, you know, whoever, whatever, all of those.
Sandra, the Luce, they are everywhere. They are.
They're everywhere, right? The resident who's out there at the legislature, the resident who's the one mowing everybody's lawn, the resident who's organizing the community gathering, the one who's meeting with Senator Warren. I mean, all of those folks are here in Montana. It's parallel in every state and in every place. There's another question here. I think the phrase economic refugee may be increasing in the near future with the inflation increases we are seeing in most everything. How can we deter this and protect affordable housing? What did you learn from making this film that maybe gives you hope or you see some opportunities for solutions, Sara?
It's a great question. I also just want to acknowledge Lisa's question. In the parks in Silicon Valley, the lot rent is between $2,000 and $3,000 in most cases. So it's astronomical. And I see this question is from Joseph. I thought Sandra was so prescient in her use of the term economic refugee. I haven't really heard anybody else use that in quite that way. And it's not in the film, but she went on to say, I don't mean to imply that my situation is as bad as a real, you know, like refugee fleeing war, you know, but she said, but it's a real crisis here. And so what gives me hope, and if you have an opportunity to watch the whole film, we'll be doing screenings. Actually, there's a screening of the film in Missoula as part of the summer film program of, the Neighborhood Development Corp. Kaya, help me with the name of them.
Okay, I got you. North Missoula Community Development Corporation, their summer cinema will be showing.
It'll be screening in July, so look for it there. We'll be streaming on platforms later in the year as well, but for right now, we're doing this community screening campaign. But what gives me hope is the people who are waking up and understanding they need to be working at the grassroots level, that they need to be voting in city council elections and showing up for city council meetings, because so many of these issues are decided at the city and state level. Zoning is not a federal issue. The federal government, national government is never going to change that. There are ways that they can work to make loans more equitable, like Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, sadly, have made a lot of their affordable housing loans to private equity firms who are buying up mobile home parks in the name of affordable housing. So that's being challenged right now. I think it's actually, I've always been a big believer in change coming from the community level. So to see communities rising up, to see, in our work across the country, to see people in parks, like you shouldn't have to be the ones doing it. People should, but bringing in allies and helping with getting that word out locally, so change starts to happen. And it's part of the impact campaign we're doing with the film. We are hoping to, our focus right now is Colorado and Iowa, and a few states like Montana we've worked a little bit in, because those are the two main stories in our film. But we're building a second tier in the campaign for 2023, which Kaya, you don't know yet. And we're building on what we've done at those states to other states, and Montana is on the list of the states that we're hoping to work more closely with. And you organized a really great convening when we were at Big Sky Festival with housing activists and a climate change person and a public health person. And you all brainstormed ways you could be using the film in Montana. So we're hoping to be much more involved with you all there. And, I guess, Joseph, that might not have been like, there is no specific answer to your question, right? How can we deter it and protect it? What gives me hope is the people rising up. What gives me hope is changing the narrative, as we start to say, sorry, Kai, I'm going to go off on a little bit of a thing here, but so yeah. The economist Milton Friedman, this is a story, right? The greed we're facing today, the corporate, sort of grab of everything and the sanctioning of it is a story that got written in the 1970s. It began mostly with an economist named Milton Friedman, who infamously wrote in the New York Times Magazine that the only social responsibility of a corporation was to make more money for its shareholders. That became a tenet of the American economic sort of policy planning of both parties. It became trickle-down economics. It became neoliberalism. The idea that the market adjusts everything and trickles down to benefit everyone. There's a book right now that you might want to read called The Man Who Broke Capitalism. It's by a New York Times reporter, and it's about Jack Welch, who ran GE, which was at the time like one of the biggest companies in the world. And Jack Welch introduced sort of the rapacious corporate practices that included laying off 10% of his workforce every year, conglomerating, companies. And in the end, like GE is breaking up this year, it's dying. And Jack Welch's acolytes, the companies they ran, most of them have also broken. So it's really important. And Jack Welch used to be held up as like, oh my God, this guy's amazing. Same with Milton Friedman. And now the narratives are changing, right? So you have a New York Times reporter who's got a book out, The Man Who Broke Capitalism. We've got John Oliver did a great piece 3 years ago on corporate ownership of public, of mobile home parks. It's been seen by over 9 million people. When my film comes out, his producing team is going to tweet about it to their 3 million followers. It's like, if we change the narrative, if we step up and take back the story and take away from the fictional Gordon Gekko from the movie Wall Street, who said greed is good, and that's somehow become a mantra. Greed isn't good. Knowing how much enough is, that's who we should be. And I find that answer most often is known most clearly by residents of manufactured housing. And that's what I'm trying to do with the film. Long one, sorry.
That's great.
That's me preaching. That was my testifying moment.
So much to share. And I think so much of what you're saying resonates with our attendees and people on the ground doing this work. Before we move to this next question, I just thought that what you started to say about changing the narrative would be a great opportunity to hear a little bit more from you about storytelling. So there's, in our world, we're all out there doing the work, and we're always trying to figure out, how do we tell these stories? How do we get out there and share the work we're doing and be part of changing that narrative? But we aren't, we're not master storytellers in the way that you are and the way that you've built your filmmaking career. So share a little bit with us about storytelling and what you think is most powerful, or things we could think about there.
It's so interesting because unexpectedly, I'm finding out that this is such an important part of our impact campaign with the film. I'm this week teaching 3 workshops on storytelling for Rock USA. Some of you folks may know Rock. You certainly do, Kaya. You're the affiliate in Montana. They help park residents buy the parks they live in. And I'm teaching 3 workshops on storytelling for their leadership group this week. And I had found online, by the way, Kaya, in Montana, you all shared at the brainstorming session a document that was like, don't use these words, use these words, which we have now shared widely, and it's in the organizing handbook, the organizer's handbook for our impact campaign, which I'll share with you when it's ready. But it's about, and maybe you can share it with these folks, but maybe you already have. But it's about staying away from the words that are politically triggering and going for words that are more inclusive and less likely to create, like, I'm trying to think of rent control. There's all kinds of words that have too much political baggage on them. But I also, I found a PDF online that I thought was really helpful that a marketing company wrote for public policy activists about effective storytelling. I'll send that to you. That will be my gift back as a way to help you all, because it's a very simple thing, and it embodies much of what I do as a storyteller. I'll give you the best thing anybody ever told me when I was a young reporter. I began as a newspaper reporter, and I was struggling late into one night with how to write the lead, the first paragraph, and in a way that wasn't just the facts. Like things like the residents of da-da-da-da park are facing, da-da-da-da-da from this, landlord, and the city policy is that. I mean, like, that's boring. Sorry, like, not to the people who are living it, but is something, it becomes blah, blah, blah in the oral background when we live in a world with so much constantly going on. But this advice from like 40 years ago is still advice today. And this person said to me, if you had been covering an event, whatever it is, and you got home at the end of the day and called your grandmother to tell her what the story was, what would you tell her? How would you start the story? Joe Biden has said something very similar to his staff. If he can't understand the story of whatever they're presenting, he tells them to to go back and start it from scratch. I have that quote somewhere. I'll look for it, Kaya. But so I think that's where great storytelling begins. You're going for somebody's heart. And I don't mean wishy-washy heart or like sentimentalism or Hallmark card. The woman who started the newspaper I worked with for many years, the Christian Science Monitor, is a woman named Mary Baker Eddy. And in her writings, she once said, when the heart speaks, however simple the words, its language is always acceptable to those who have hearts. That has guided my work as a storyteller since I was in my 20s. And it led me to the understanding of like an inverted pyramid of storytelling, which is if you can reach somebody by the heart, you're going to make them care. And you're most likely to get them to care by approaching the heart. And from that group of people, you'll have people who are like so moved that they're willing to think about it a little more deeply. And then from that group of people, there's a smaller group who will have gone from, wow, that's not right, or I feel something about that too. So why did that happen? What's going on in the world? To what can I do to help change it? So it's a smaller group, it's just the nature of human behavior about who can get involved or who's got that temperament to be involved. But so I think in this short span of time, I would say it's to start with the heart and to tell a story. I think good storytelling reveals things that people don't know. It shares information in a way that that connects humanity, and that might be outraging people. It might be moving somebody, but it's how you sort of, it's why, as Kaya read in the beginning of my introduction, I'm so interested in the ways that community helps us, define the expression of humanity. So it's in that space. And I think good storytelling also opens the door to, or at least it inspires the desire to act. So and this is really social justice storytelling that we're talking about. I talk about, filmmaking as a tool for storytelling as a tool for social change. And, Kaio, I don't know, I'm realizing that I'm going to have to start doing these workshops in more places to help people. So put that in the, in your pocket, and we can talk about ways that I can really spend time with everybody to talk about how you tell stories. Because that said, there's storytelling, like, is it a Facebook post? Is it a press release? Do you want to do a podcast? Are you making a documentary film? I don't recommend that because it took me like 6.5 years, but there's good things to be done there. But you can make short, videos on your iPhone. There's like just the benefit of all this social media is there's so many ways for us to communicate in the world. But the challenge of it is discovering the way to break through that, tsunami of information and chatter as well. And I'm happy to, keep talking.
Yeah, there's so much. Yeah, we're not going to get the primer in 3 minutes, but just some of the reflections and the guiding elements are really powerful for us to reflect
all
on.
those things guided the making of A Decent Home. They're all there. The Carlyle Group versus the American Dream is a slightly different version of storytelling, because I just wanted to make one short film that slammed the Carlyle Group, because they're not in my feature-length film, and I wanted to hit it. My A Decent Home was turned down by many festivals who thought their audiences wouldn't be interested in the stories of people who live in mobile home parks. I had one person actually say that. I'm going back around to the festivals that turned down the film and going, okay, you know what? This issue isn't going away. So here's something that you can take in 10.5 minutes to really understand the issue.
Yeah. So I want to pause for a second and just in engaging our hearts, just recognize the flooding, and Katina's putting some notes in the chat that Billings is in a state of emergency. So anyone who needs to attend to that, of course, that's our top priority, is making sure our neighbors and communities are safe, and certainly everyone's in our thoughts. So we know folks are dealing with some real challenges today.
I'm sorry to hear that.
So the storytelling piece is really so relevant to us at any time, but particularly for many of us right now as we look towards the upcoming legislative session. So Eva posted a question here about mobile home protection laws at the state level, and whether these have gone anywhere in places that you've been working, Sarah, and then maybe I can speak a little bit to what we're seeing in Montana.
Yes, there's examples. There's still only maybe a half a dozen states that have anything meaningful on the books, and then varying degrees in other places, and in some places not at all. I mean, in Iowa, this is like the worst case sort of story. This is the 4th year in a row that they tried to get legislation through that included rent stabilization on the lots. Haven Park, has bought several parks in Iowa. That's in my film. The bill passed, is out. It's signed into bill. The only people who wound up supporting a bill that's supposed to protect park residents was the Manufactured Housing Association, the lobbyist for park owners, because it was stripped of everything the park residents wanted. So that's kind of a bad story where the narrative got grabbed and swiveled. Colorado, which is featured in the film, the 3-year fight to save the park called Denver Meadows, led to the passage of laws that now make Colorado one of the strongest states in the nation. And it's directly correlated to the efforts of a low-income Hispanic community where residents were working 2 and 3 jobs to take care of their families, who took the time out for 3 years to go to every city council meeting and to try to put a stop to the rezoning of the parkland they lived on. And that has led to protections. That's what led to other residents in other parts of the state being able to buy the parks that they live in. So it's the narrative and community activism that brought those changes. And I think that that's actually going to be the case in most every state, because this isn't, I mean, there are some legislators who are committed to this kind of thing, but it isn't necessarily the top item on somebody's agenda. You all know that if you've lived in, housing that's on the lower end of the economic scale, those are people who tend to not have time to get involved in the political process or the money, so it just gets ignored. But once you start aggregating at that community level and making that noise and being what America is supposed to be, by the people, for the people, then I think that's where effective change happens. And I know that Montana has been there's conversations in legislation, you've had some good support, but I don't know, Kaya, what the current status is.
Yeah, so in Montana, in the last legislative session, there was one legislator in particular in Kalispell, Senator Hoeven, who really got activated around this issue. He's a Republican senator. He's termed out and retired now. But he brought 3 bills forward. One was to give residents an opportunity to make an offer. So everyone be notified that their park is going to be sold, and give residents, we were asking for 45 days for residents to make a competitive offer. That bill did not move forward, but for NeighborWorks Montana, for some of our colleagues in other states, that's sort of one of the most powerful tools that we've seen in other states that really facilitates a resident purchase model where we're bringing that land ownership and control into resident hands. What did come out of that bill is stronger capital gains incentives for park owners in Montana who sell either to residents, to a nonprofit, or to a housing authority. And so any park owner who sells to one of those entities can get 100% capital gains reduction for their Montana state capital gains.
That's law, Kaya?
That's law. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
That's in place. Yeah.
That's a great
And
incentive.
then the other piece so there's a little bit of a financial incentive. What we've seen in negotiating with park owners is it's typically not going to be the thing that totally tips the scale, but it is a nice carrot and an additional incentive that can help bring them along when they're considering their options of who they want to sell to. And then the other piece that came out of that is an annual notice to park owners to make them aware of that incentive and benefit. And so the Department of Commerce through Montana Housing is responsible for sending out those notices and has been including language about the resident-owned community program and helping us make owners aware that that's an option. And I will share, yes, there are a lot of parks. I know there's been some chatter here about parks getting sold off book, and communities getting snatched up by large out-of-state companies like what Sara is highlighting in the film we just watched. And certainly those trends are happening in Montana. It is very difficult to compete against or to compete with some of those capital sources and some of those big money sources. But we are still successful at getting new communities into the resident-owned program. And we actually have 4 communities under contract in Montana right now, which is the most we've ever had at one time. And if we're successful at acquisition on all of those, that'll be an additional 175 households who are protected and own their communities in the state.
How many parks are resident-owned in Montana, Kaya? That's a great number for.
Yeah, so there are 15 parks currently that serve a little over 600 households.
Great.
And so this would be, almost 20 households. We have, or 20 parks, 19 parks, if we can successfully close all of these.
That's great progress. And as you pointed out, there are options. There's a park in Durango that the Rock USA Park helped these residents navigate a really horrible park owner, and they have been purchased by a nonprofit called Elevation, which is kind of essentially put the land into a land trust, like a 99-year lease to the residents. So there are other options than buying the park. There are players out there that are doing it. I also think what you mentioned is really important to highlight, which probably folks on this call know, the importance of extending the amount of days you have to make a purchase, because you have, in commercial real estate in particular, moves so quickly that residents are often just, they find out too late, they can't get an offer in. And Colorado just extended that period of time. That was one of the results of a recent law they passed, which unfortunately they stripped rent stabilization from because the governor said he would veto the bill. But yeah, it's always this incremental change, but powered by activists.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I wanted to just note here, So Sarah's been raising rent control. That's absolutely a more common kind of approach and regulatory tool that's used in other states. There was a rent control bill that Senator Hoeven brought forth and didn't really even have discussion in committee. But I think that that's an area that people are starting to ask more questions about in Montana as the rates increase so dramatically.
Can I just say one thing on that, Kai? And it's just occurred to me for the first time. So with that issue of rent control or rent stabilization, that as everybody knows is something that just triggers all kinds of, political divide on it. But I think my intuition is that as we get better at changing the narrative and say the rents are going up because of out-of-state predatory investors, if the link can be made between healthy communities being endangered by out-of-state people coming in to make money, I think you've kind of reframed the whole issue of like, we need to protect housing for our workers, for our residents. And that could be, that's just occurred to me for the first time. And I think that could be an interesting way to start to frame that, to take it out of just the traditional, we need rent control, because like nobody responds to that argument anymore and without being left or right.
And certainly,
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, you didn't. And I think that that's right. Certainly we had some of those conversations about what's that entry point? Where do we have shared common ground here? And in Montana, I think that issue of outside forces it can be really powerful. And I think we're really fortunate in some ways in our state. Many manufactured home parks are locally owned. They're mom and pop.
Are they still? How wonderful. Wow.
A lot of them are, right. So we'll talk to park owners and they'll say, I was out there laying pipe with my dad when I was a teenager. So there's a lot of that. So there's so much more to talk about. We are out of time here, but I think one thing that I've really appreciated about working with you, Sara, is the impact campaign and the commitment to really making this film a living piece of storytelling that is active in our communities. So really encourage everyone to check out the NMCDC cinema or think about ways that you think either this 10-minute film or the feature-length documentary could be put to use and screened in your community. And I'm happy to help shepherd those conversations, or you can connect with Sara directly. So just a huge thank you to you, Sara. Thanks for joining us and sharing your work. And we look forward to continuing to work with you.
Thank you. Thank you all for the time today and for watching the short and for you for sharing it. And I'll get that PDF on storytelling off to you right now.
Fantastic. We'll get it on the conference website. Thanks, Sara.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sara. I love what you said about starting with a heart and telling a story and asking what I can do to help change. I love that. I hope we all take some of that away. And I hope you check out the chat and see all the kudos to your work and your career that you have dedicated to telling people's story.
Thanks.
We now have a 30-minute break before the 10:45 a.m. office hours, followed by the 11:30 a.m. table talks. Office hours are a chance to meet with some key program and funding partners to hear about their programs and to get your questions answered. And table talks are a place to meet up with your peers and discuss hot topics in housing. Pick one and hear what is keeping your colleagues up at night and what solutions are gaining traction. All session links can be found in Whova. And then at 1 p.m. we have our final set of breakouts. We do have one change in the agenda just quickly. The session Housing Development on Montana's Indian Reservations has been canceled. The presenter had a family emergency and is unable to participate in the conference this week. We will look for another opportunity to feature the highlight the great development work of tribal housing authorities. After the breakout sessions, we will look forward to seeing everyone back together for our closing plenary at 2:30 p.m. You will not want to miss this keynote from Dr. Megan Sandell about homes as a foundation of health for children, families, and communities. She is an incredible speaker, and you will be privileged to hear that. Before you go, we're going to do a quick drawing, the final 3 names for raffle prizes. So Michelle, if you could bring up the wheel of names, and we're going to pick 3 more winners. Congratulations, Matthew. You will receive a prize in the mail. And Alyssa, you will also be receiving a prize in the mail. And lastly, Stephanie, you will be receiving a prize. Congratulations. Don't forget to vote in the People's Choice Award today. Voting will close out at 3:30 at the end of the conference today. Enjoy your breakout sessions, and we'll see you all back together at 2:30 this afternoon. Bye.